We will hear you better without the mask.
Yeah, but I've got to make a point here first. There was a call this afternoon from the chaplain at Sector Charleston. This is Lieutenant Spear. And he asked that the auxiliary be mobilized to make masks like this for active duty members that have to wear them when they're in the workspaces. So we had started to put together a message to all of the sector flotillas requesting their support, and I just got foreshortened on that because apparently there's something coming out from District 7 about this either later on tonight or tomorrow. So just to let you know, this was an old t-shirt, an old boarding shirt, and it took about 10 minutes, 5 minutes of which was finding the scissors. There's a coffee filter wrapped up inside there. There's a lot of designs available on the internet. What they're looking for is solid colors, preferably something that would match with the ODUs. So you'll either get something from your flotilla commander or directly from Commodore Barth on this later on tonight or tomorrow. So that much aside, let's get into the subject of the evening, which is a telecommunications operator qualification. This is a relatively new qualification for the auxiliary. It's been around for about 10 years as far as I can tell. And it is a very broad but not very deep introduction to Coast Guard operations, specifically communications procedures, a little bit of navigation, and some distress case management features. So we are going to have different instructors each night. I took the first one because it's the easiest stuff and I'm most familiar with it. David's going to be teaching one night. Susan White's going to teach one night. Morgan Jalops, who is a OS1 at Sector Charleston, stands duty in the command center, will be talking to us one night about distress procedures and what you should and shouldn't do if somebody's asking for help. So we're trying to turn that over to the people who are best suited to serve as instructors. And thank you all for your time tonight. The reward at the end of the rainbow here is multifaceted. It's a good introduction to Coast Guard operations. So if you're going to be training as boat crew or flying for us, or standing watch in the station or sector radio shacks, this is the first step. So you're in the right place, even if you haven't done anything else. It is a prerequisite for offering and owning and operating a Coast Guard radio facility, of which there are a couple of types. You can put a marine radio in your vehicle. If you're TCO qualified, the district will assign you a station number and you can do radio patrols. You can do the same thing at your house with a fixed facility. Again, you'll get a station number from the district and you can monitor radio traffic and transmit from your home station. It is also a prerequisite for qualifying as a watchstander at any of the active units, such as Station Charleston or one of the other boat stations, which are in themselves prerequisites for qualifying to stand a watch at the sector command center. Lastly, it is considered an operational qualification, so completion of this personal qualification specification standard. I don't know what PQS stands for, but when you get it done, we'll give you a ribbon. It's same ribbon that you would earn for boat crew, but if you're just starting on boat crew, you will get this one done a lot quicker, and then boat crew would result in a star for a second award on the operations program ribbon. So, without further ado, let's go directly to task number 1.1,
which
Walter,
is
do you
operating
wanna-
the unit's radios.
Walter, do you want to tell people about the documents that will be shared with them if they haven't gotten it, and just to make sure that the
Oh, yeah, the admin stuff for the
the
course. Thank you.
network?
Okay, so the PQS for this thing, one of our members has created a PDF version of it that populates your name and your number in all the right places. So if you've already printed one on your own, that's fine. But what we're going to do is assign each student a mentor, and that mentor will maintain the copy in which the signatures are collected for the individual tasks. So it's a great idea to have one to follow along and study with and make notes at home. But the real deal will be maintained by your mentor. And when we're complete with this, those will be submitted to the communications guy that sends them up to wherever they go from there. Did that cover it? Anybody have any questions on why we're doing this or what we're going to be doing?
Walter, I have a student study guide for auxiliary specialty course communications. Is that what you're talking about?
No, the TCO personal qualifications standard, I think is the right three-letter acronym for it. There was a copy of it, a blank copy of it attached to the invite
Dawn is
to
showing
the
it.
class.
Dawn
So-
is showing it on the screen.
Right, I have that too. I have the auxiliary telecommunications qualifications standard, but there's also a study guide, which is quite large.
Yeah, the study guide, I think, is if there's a date on it, it's probably prior to 2008. And it's, I think, a leftover from what we used to call AUXCOM, or auxiliary communications.
Oh, okay.
It's
So that-
probably very appropriate material.
Okay.
But for the most part, we're going to be flipping through this PQS and talking about the tasks as we hit them and then moving on.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this
If
a?
anybody's got unstable connections on this thing, the advice is just stop your video feed now that we've all seen what 3 weeks of corona quarantine can do to people. I will keep that going. David, I need you at some point to enable screen share for participants, please.
You should be able to. There's no restrictions.
I've got a message saying host disabled participant screen sharing. All right, you take a look at that, and we'll take a look at task number 1.1. It's titled Operate the Unit's Radio. So I'm going to try and light up a separate camera here, and we will be able to take a look at a radio.
It should work.
Of the folks online, is there anybody that does not have a marine radio available? Do we have a new sign-in, David?
We have one person, but it's HLL, so I don't know who that.
Looks like
I
Heather.
don't have a VHF radio with me. It's on the boat.
Okay. Is there anybody that's never seen one or never
don't
used
have-
one?
I don't have one with me either.
Okay.
Well, I just want to make sure Walter is clear. We're not actually talking about whether you have one. One is part of the exercises. We intend to have everybody, after we've gone through all the courses, content over the next couple of weeks or couple of sessions, is to meet up in a parking lot, keep social distancing, and actually being able to use the radios to work in groups, although I don't know how that's going to be now possible with the brand new order issued by the governor as of this afternoon, which is now you have to either stay home or you actually have to go to work, and that's it, with significant fines. So, but that was at least our plan, so that might just be delayed. But we just want to make sure that you can report back to us whether you have access to a portable radio at some point. But we have plenty of extras if we needed to. Walter, I'm letting you in, sorry.
Okay, David, I'm looking for a second sign in here.
You're,
Thank you.
you. You have two.
Okay. So let me see if I can make this work right. All right, this is, says it started screen sharing. Is anybody seeing two of me?
No,
We used to see two pictures of you, Walter, but you have a low connection. I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi, but
Yeah, my screen is just black.
yeah, it says that you're attempting to screen, but we're also hearing some friction on your sound. So it looks like
All right, I think I've got it now.
we're seeing your keyboard now. So you have your keyboard and your camera on your laptop or your computer.
Okay,
I'm not seeing that.
there. All right, how about now? Do we have a radio up here now?
I see a radio in your hand.
That's a
You
cell
don't see the
phone.
radio itself.
Oh,
Folks, you should try to find on your, if you're not using if you're using a laptop, you should be able to have the option of selecting a window that you want to see versus multiple of windows.
Oh,
oh,
there.
yeah. I see something.
Walter, now I've spotlighted your video for demonstration purposes. Everybody is now seeing only one.
Do we see a radio now?
Yeah.
We
I
do.
see 83.
Ah, okay, very good.
Yep.
Okay, so I gotta hold the script in one hand, the camera in another, and run the radio with the third.
Get out you
I'll
go.
break my neck before this night is over. All right, so this is a pretty common garden variety marine radio. I'll try and be more stable here. All marine radios, fixed mount, are 25-watt units. This particular one's probably 15 years old. It's an ICOM M402. I know that Will's got this same radio on his boat. And we'll just take a look at the basic controls here. We have an on-off and volume control switch at top left. So when we turn that on, uh-oh. We have what's called an open mic on channel 68. So we're picking up the audio from somebody's boat out there. That's not good. Wow. Oh, he's open on 16.
Mm.
That's bad. Couldn't be a worse time for this, folks. All right, so what you're hearing is somebody who has accidentally left their beer can up against their microphone and is transmitting everything that happens on their boat, mostly music at the time being. On the other end of this, over at the command center, they're able to look at the screen and get a position on this guy based on what direction he's hitting the towers from. So if they wanted to, they could go out and find him and tell him to get off the radio. All marine radios are going to have a button for channel 16. David will be talking about the use of the channels a little bit more in depth tomorrow night. But for right now, we have a volume control. We have the squelch, which is one that you want to understand. It's a filter with a variable gain. So when you turn it up, let's go some other channel.
13.
Let's try 13. If we turn the squelch down far enough, we'll hear all the static out there. By turning the squelch up just to the point where the static disappears, you've set the radio correctly. That's something that you want to be able to do no matter what kind of radio you're using. You want to know how to turn it on, adjust the volume and the squelch so that the calls that you want get through and the stuff that you don't want to hear doesn't distract you. Most of these radios are going to have a weather feature. So in this case, if I push the weather button, it will take you to weather channel number 1. Another press will take you back to the standard channels. Boy, there's a big mess. There's stuff on all kinds of channels tonight. Most radios will have a feature called dual watch. They may call it something else, but that allows you to listen to 2 different channels at the same time. Very convenient for us. If your guard channel is on 2.1 and we're also required to monitor 16 when we're out there, so you can set it up. If you can see this, it says 21 dual watch with a flashing 16. So if somebody keys up on 16, we'll hear that. Otherwise, we'll be on 21. If we go to transmit, if we key up, that will go out on 21 as well. So some radios have some digital stuff added to them where there's an actual ID assigned to the boat, and that enables some distress features. If you look closely at this guy, there's an icon up there that says GPS, and that means that it's getting a position signal from the GPS that's connected to it. And if I were to press this button underneath the distress cover, it would send out a coded message identifying the boat and providing our location, even if we weren't able to actually pick up the microphone and make a voice call asking for help. Some radios have controls on the microphone. In this case, we can hit the 16 or 9 button to get down to those channels. Except that 16 is busy. All right, let's just leave that alone for now. And see what else we've got in the way of controls on these things. Handhelds are going to be different in that not as much room for knobs and buttons, so they tend to do things with cryptic keyboards and so forth.
Walter, is your laptop on Wi-Fi? Because you really don't have a good signal. We're hearing on the voice.
Okay. Laptop and the phone are both on the Wi-Fi, so
Okay.
let me just turn the phone off. We'll go back to the laptop. All right, so other controls on these radios, you have a high-low power switch. They're all maxed out at 25 watts. That's where you're going to be most of the time. If you're trying to call somebody that's just a quarter mile away, you only need 1 watt to do that. So some of the channels default to a low power setting to keep the traffic local. This is primarily for bridge-to-bridge traffic. And by that, I mean the bridge of one ship to the bridge of another, not the bridge tenders talking to each other when they get bored. We also have dimmer features so that you can set the display for nighttime, frequency and channel select. In that case we were just looking at, it's north and south arrows. Sometimes on a larger radio, it's a knob that you can turn to adjust the channels. And hey, David, I have a request from Ed Gerhardt to be allowed back into the meeting.
I did.
Okay. All right, the international, Canadian, and USA selection. There are standard frequencies that are assigned and agreed by international treaty around the world, but different countries use different subsets of them. In particular, we use a different set than the Canadians use, and I think the rest of the world uses a different set than either of us. So that's something you want to get set probably just once when you first start working with the new radio. And on most channels, it doesn't make a difference, but unfortunately for us on 2.1, it does. If anybody's ever wondered why we call it 2.1 alpha, it's because that's the version of 2.1 that we use here in the States. So we saw the weather button. There's 10 weather frequencies that are used throughout the United States. And in different areas, different ones will be stronger. Here in Charleston, we get weather from the FAA out at the airport, and that's on Weather Channel 1. The microphone is usually they're kind of waterproof at least, and you're going to want to hold that just a couple inches away from your mouth. Speak in a normal tone of voice. Stay calm. And speak clearly.
And watch for the wind if you're on a facility, as in this might affect the transmission.
Yeah, duck down out of the wind. If you're talking to somebody and it's blowing, it can be very difficult to understand them. We saw the scanning frequency. I think I had it going there for a minute where you can either tell it to scan all channels or some subset of them. These are manufacturer-specific options on. Could I ask everybody to mute, because the screen's jumping around when it picks up noise in a.
I can mute everybody,
background.
Walter. I'm going to go
What?
ahead and do that. I'll mute everybody,
Okay.
and then I will unmute you.
Okay.
Stand by. You're all set.
Okay. Last item on there is direction finding. We don't have a lot of this kind of equipment on the boats. Some of the response boats do. This is a system that allows you to figure out what direction a radio signal is coming from, so that if you're trying to find somebody for one reason or another, you can home in on their signal. So if we had a response boat out trying to find this guy with the open mic on 16, he would be able to use direction finding equipment. And if you ever see one of these station boats, take a look up top and look for an antenna that's got four vertical elements a few inches apart around a central antenna. That's the DF thing, and there's similar equipment on the towers that we're talking to the Coast Guard on. So our tasks for sign off on this are: you have to be able to turn the radio on. So if you've got a radio, make sure you know how to do that. You have to be able to adjust the squelch, set the volume control to the desired level. Weather channel is a good way to do that because it's always going to be broadcasting. You have to know how to select channel 16. Usually you can either roll down with the knob, or scroll down with the keys, or hit the big button that says 16. Any of those ways are acceptable. The working channel, in our case, it will be whatever channel the watchkeeper assigns us to. Very often 2.1 alpha around here. You have to know how to set the radio to the channel that's been assigned or given to you for whatever it is we're doing. You have to be able to demonstrate and explain the high-low power selection in use. So for our purposes, we're always going to be on 2.5. Unless maybe if we had two aux boats out doing a towing drill and you just wanted to keep the power level down so that the signal didn't travel too far, you can put them both on 1 watt. If you're having trouble hailing somebody or reaching one of the towers, check the radio to make sure it's not on low, because with these buttons on the microphones, it can be easy to accidentally set yourself to low power. There's always going to be some sort of a display on the, or an icon on the display that indicates whether you're transmitting high power or low. So you'll be asked to demonstrate microphone use. If we can get this show out to a parking lot somewhere, we'll do that. You should know how to set up a scanner or at least a dual watch on the radio so that you can keep track of what's going on multiple frequencies. And we do not have any DF equipment, so you won't have to worry about that. Any questions about what we've talked about so far? Anybody got a radio handy that would like to do a demo and get some sign-offs going? Or anybody confused by what we said?
No, sir. Good to go.
Walter,
Okay.
as a practical matter, how many channels are normally used in a patrol or whatever?
Generally just 2, the guard channel and 16. If we're doing an exercise, the Coast Guard has 4 working channels that are available to us. That's 2-1 alpha, 2-2, 2-3, 8-1, and 8-3. And some of those have got local preference assigned to them, like they play a lot of pre-recorded broadcasts at the top of the hour on channel 2-2 around here. So we hardly ever would use that one for boat-to-boat communications because you're going to get stepped on by some very powerful transmitters on top of the towers if we're out there working on that channel.
Channel 27, folks, is also a channel that's maintained by boat, the Boat US or TOW.
I think it's Boat US.
Yeah, and it's a channel that's available to all that will allow you to clear your radio. So if you actually transmit on that channel and identify your location, your boat, and you get a signal back, that actually gives usually a signal that your radio is effective and communicating correctly. So,
Okay, did that make it out on the audio?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's what happens when somebody accidentally leaves an open mic. As soon as the Coast Guard can break in and get a message out, they do that. So if you hear that message, check your mic just to make sure it's not you they're yelling at. And I think one of our guest speakers will be able to talk a little bit more about that kind of part of the work. Generally speaking, we're not enforcement on the airwaves, so we don't have to worry about that. But it is you hardly ever hear an open mic on 21 from somebody other than the Coast Guard, but that's what we had going on here a couple of minutes ago. And okay, they're gone. So task number 1, 2 is where you're going to demonstrate your ability to actually use a radio. So you're going to have to set it to the proper channel. You're going to ensure that the volume control is high enough that you can hear what you want to hear. Make sure that the squelch is set correctly so that you're not hearing stuff you don't want to hear. I'll put this out as a question. What do we do before we key up and transmit? You listen to see if anybody else is already talking. Because if we step on them, their message might not get through to whoever they were trying to talk to. We want to speak concisely and clearly, slowly, so that people understand what we're saying. And use a normal tone of voice. Just keep it clear, 1 to 2 inches away from your mouth. And I have used a mask while on a boat, and it is a little bit of a challenge to make yourself adjust your speech patterns so that you can be heard clearly through the mask. And we also want to use the proper pro words such as over and out, not in the same sentence. at the end of the transmission. More on that to come. So when we get a chance to do this with you, that's what we'll do. You're going to be handed a radio, or you'll sit down at one, and we will drag you through those tasks and initial it as we go. And then we're going to move on to task 1-3, but not before we stop to ask if anybody's got any questions about what we just talked about.
No, sir.
Walter, it's Mike Pascal. I have a general question that, well, for example, take task 1-2. At the beginning, there are several documents that are listed as references. Auxiliary Operations Policy Manual, Chapter 11 Boat Crew Seamanship Manual, and the Radio Telephone Handbook. And the full list of references is on page 2 of the PQS document. I was able to find the Auxiliary Operations Policy Manual. The other things are not easy to find online. I'm wondering how critical is it that we have each of those reference materials? Is it each of those necessary to complete this PQS?
Well, the performance standards are just what has got the little initial things next to them. How you get that knowledge is sort of irrelevant. To explain the difficulty on some of this stuff, the Ops Policy Manual is still a current document, so yeah, that's going to be easy to find. The Boat Crew Seamanship Manual has been replaced, but the PQS that we're working from has not been updated to reflect the new document. The Boat Crew Seamanship Manual is what the active duty boat crews train to, and it's about 1,800 pages, so you probably don't want to pull that whole thing down. Those are good references, and you might use them to settle an argument someday, but for the most part, we're not going to get that deep into things in this class, and you needn't worry about having those handy. Just make sure you understand the tasks that we're going to be asking you to demonstrate, and everything will be fine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Walter, can you hear Joe?
Yes, I can hear Joe.
The radios, if you're if you yourself have a hot mic and you've got 21 selected, are you going to be able to hear on the other channel that the radio is capable of listening on, or does it blank both of them out?
I think that's going to wipe them both out. I don't see how you could be transmitting on any channel and receiving on a different one or the same one at the same time.
So those people that had a hot mic, they're not going to hear.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the magic of radio, is the strongest signal wins. You generally don't have to listen to two conversations at once. What you'll hear is whichever one your radio is receiving better, and the other one's going to get wiped out. I have no idea how that works, but it does. And not just on marine radios, that's true of ham radios and other uses of radio technology. I was going to show you, I've got a ham radio up here next to you, next to the other one. One thing about marine radios is that they are channelized, so that all you have to do is remember a 2-digit number, and the radio is programmed to automatically set the transmit and receive frequencies associated with it. What I'm going to show you is a ham radio, and the video from my side is not good on this. Can anybody read the numbers on there?
156000.
Close. 156.800. Nick Feliciano, what is that?
Say again?
Nick, what's 156.8?
What is?
What channel is it?
It's not John. It's not John. It's Nick.
Okay, does anybody know what channel that is? That is a marine channel.
16.
16. Ding, ding, ding. Who got that?
I did.
Susan.
Oh, okay. Now I got you. All
It
right.
doesn't make up.
I don't know if this will work or not, but to tune a ham radio, when I change the knob, it doesn't go from 21 to 22. It's changing the actual frequency. So if you wanted to shade something a little bit high or low, you can do that. So much for that. All right. Were there any other questions about 1-2?
No, but what was raised up earlier, Walter, the importance of having multiple radios on a patrol beside the actual facility is so that we actually are able to, if we do switch channel by mistake, or multiple people can monitor multiple radios. So if you do have a handheld, it is advisable to charge it and show up on a patrol having it, even if we don't use it and it's not put to use, it just stays in your bag.
Yeah, we very often end up with more radios than people on a patrol. Also, if you're trying to help somebody out and they don't have a radio, which happens a lot out there, it's good to have an extra around so you can, if you're going to tow somebody, hand them a radio, set it to the channel that you want to talk to them on, and that way you're not yelling and doing a bunch of sign language at the boat that you're towing along. Or if you have to put somebody on the beach to go walk and look for a problem. We had that one a couple of years ago. Luke and I did that, and the handhelds were great. One guy stayed on the boat and the other one went and investigated, and we got the job done. I did notice a question in the chat. Heather, when we use a radio for boat raising, we say everything twice. Is this standard practice when using radios? No, it's not. If we get it said clearly the first time, generally speaking, no need to repeat. We'll get into radio protocol later in the course. When you're calling a station for the first time, you repeat the name of the station that you're calling 3 times rather than just once or twice. And then after that, things get a little bit more informal.
Go ahead and demonstrate it, Walter. I'll be station.
Coast Guard Station Charleston, Coast Guard Station Charleston, Coast Guard Station Charleston. Auxiliary 84321 Alpha, over.
843 station, go ahead.
Station, we are beached due to coronavirus. No need for a guard tonight. Just wanted to check on, make sure the radios are working right. Sometimes you'll hear the term clear the radios. That means check transmission and reception. Station, I have you loud and clear. How many, over?
843 station, loud and clear also. Station out.
Okay. So there we are. Heather, did that answer your question about saying things twice? Okay. All right, if nothing else on 1-2, we'll go ahead to 1-3.
One more question from Garvey.
That was supposed to read marine radios. Sorry about that.
Yeah. We only use channelized radios. These are consumer items. There's no license required to buy them, and as such, they're packaged and built to a different standard. I think it's FCC Part 90-something. This ham radio, for example, will receive marine frequencies, but I'm not supposed to transmit on them because it's a 55-watt radio rather than the 25 that's the max allowed for the marine band. So, okay. Yeah, we're supposed to know that 156.8 is channel 16. Other than that, you never really have to worry about the actual frequencies that are involved. Okay, anything else? All right, 1-3, basic communication skills. Here we go. Conditions. First one up, demonstrate use of the standard phonetic alphabet. Did anybody have a chance to take a look at that?
I'm not going to comment, sir. I'll let someone else.
Okay, I sent out 2 copies of the phonetic alphabet.
The fun one was really cute.
Did you like that? All right, for those that didn't get a look at it, maybe we can do a screen share here, and I'll see if I can find it. How many, do this through the chat room. Please indicate whether you already know the phonetic alphabet or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mary, you've got something to practice in quarantine. And luckily you've got somebody there to practice with you. So everybody, okay. Well, for those of you that already know the one phonetic alphabet, we'll share this other one and see what you think of this. Okay, would this work for us?
You got it.
Q, cucumber. F, pharmacy. T, pterodactyl. K, quesadilla.
I see a lot of drowning in this.
Well, I was going to try and grab a little clip from the movie called Hot Shots. If you guys are familiar with that one, they have some fun with this phonetic alphabet, but it does help a lot when you're trying to understand what people are spelling out for you on the radio. So if you don't know it, go ahead and start practicing it, whatever mnemonics work. I used to recommend that people practice while they were driving around with somebody else, but maybe that's not needed anymore. All right, so I just went from page 10 to page 9. That's not good. Okay, the makeup and usage of a communications log. If you're going to own a facility, you're supposed to keep a log. And there's 3 sections to the log. There's details on those 3 sections in the, I think it's reference C, the radio telephone handbook. I'm not going to drill into that too much here, but it tells you how to structure a log. If you're going to work as a watchstander at a Coast Guard unit, you'll need to know sort of when you're filing important communications, what goes where. So that's the extent of it. As far as us being on the boats, some people do keep a hard copy log on the boats of all their calls. Everything we say to sector over our guard channel is recorded digitally. So they've got that available, and I've just never got in the habit of keeping a paper log on a small wet boat. So
but we do create a summary of a patrol, which indirectly does summarize the patrol, not necessarily by minutes, but it does. I just want to make people to know that when you are issuing or when you're added to a patrol, there's actually a history of not only when the patrol started, when we stood standby, to when we went on the way, we left what, where, did what. If there was a starter activity, we'll actually give a code and number and so forth. And then there's a little window that actually gives, and Walter's really good at providing details there.
okay.
David or Walter, I'm sorry, would that be considered an after-action report? Does that get filed with anyone?
Yeah, it's part of the document by which the facility owner or operator is reimbursed, and the same document drives the tracking of underway hours for the crews. Like as a boat crew, you're supposed to have 12 hours underway each year to maintain your qualification currency.
Got it.
As a coxswain, you're supposed to have that plus 4 hours of night operations. And this is the document that at least used to drive all of that record keeping. It's part of the system that they just shut down. And on the 15th of this month, we were supposed to have the replacement system available. But nobody I know has seen it yet, and we don't know how it's going to work and what we're going to have to do to request orders, get them approved by the liaison officer, complete them after we've done the job, document the expenses, the time involved, any significant activities that happen during the mission, and then finally that's the document that gets pushed to the finance center to pop out a check for whoever it was that went out of pocket to do the mission.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
No problem. It was not a bad system. The one before it was awful. And I never had a problem with one that we're using now. It's called AOM, Auxiliary Order Management. But it's all going to be wrapped up in some new mothership of a computer that's going to descend upon planet Ox and wipe us all out. Okay, at the top of page 11, you'll see reference to something called an ACU, which is, Ed, not your Army combat uniform or a landing craft. It is an auxiliary communications unit. We don't have them around here, but in some of the northern parts of the country, they have seasonal stations. Like if the lake is frozen over all winter, they don't bother keeping all the Coast Guard stations manned around the edge of the lake. During the summer, there are places that have radio-only stations to help monitor traffic. And some of those are manned exclusively by the auxiliary. And those are called ACUs, Auxiliary Communications Units. The members that do that work have to have this qualification, and they are put on paid orders to go out in the woods by the lake, wherever these things are, and sit there and listen to the radio and serve as the voice of the Coast Guard if needed. So as long as you know what they are, that'll be enough to get you through this. If you end up going someplace where they have them and you want to do that kind of work, it's available. So all right, so that's about it for knowledge transfer. It's time for a little quiz. So let's do this through the chat, and I'll ask the questions and you guys pound in the answers, okay? And the first correct one I see gets the whatever the prize is tonight. Question number 1, the squelch control is adjusted until what disappears? Static. Yes, Joey, you go. I owe you I guess a beer. No, wait, you already had one. I saw it earlier, so. Yeah, that's right. That's the knob I was fiddling with earlier. So if we turn the squelch down, we get the noise. Number 2, volume control should be set high enough to hear what kind of signals through static and other interference?
Nick is correct.
Yeah, distress communications, right? You don't want to be listening to the guy that's got Margaritaville on his stereo. You want to be making sure that you're picking up the strong signal from the guy that's really in need of some help. Okay, number 3, what should we do before we transmit by keying up the microphone?
Heather has it.
Heather, quick on the keyboard tonight. Good girl. All right.
What kind of voice should I speak in?
Clear. Yes, indeed. Hopefully, without the mask, I'm reasonably clear. All right, number 5. We do not want to transmit while the people around us are talking, and we do not want to do something until we're ready to transmit. What is that something? Key the mic. Very good, Ed. Yeah, it makes sense. Take a minute and think about what you want to say before you pull the trigger on this thing. Because once you do, everybody on the channel is going to hear you. Number 6, we should not use profane or blank language. There's probably a lot of words you could put in there. Inappropriate. Obscene. Slang. Jargon. Yeah. All right. I think the textbook answer is obvious, right? We're not out there to offend anybody on the radio, but Ed and Joe both made a good point, which is we want to speak using words that everybody understands. So especially if you're talking to the public, stay away from acronyms, stay away from Coast Guard slang, stay away from things that Joe Q public isn't going to know what you're talking about. So what kind of alphabet is used to spell difficult words which are hard to understand over the radio? Phonetic, yes.
You switch the radio off, Walter?
Yeah. Okay. What is the radio pronunciation for the Arabic numeral 9? Dawn, you win. You got it. Niner. Neener? Okay. I think we're just going to call that close enough and move on. All right. Question number 9. The pro words correct and what are used to indicate that what was transmitted was correct? Heather says Roger. Affirmative. How copy? I'm going to ask for a quick guest lecture by one of our air traffic controllers to explain what Roger means.
Roger means you. Roger means you understand. Basically, you were just listening and you acknowledge.
Means you understand. It doesn't mean you agree necessarily, right?
Right. It just means you heard, basically.
Okay.
But doesn't always mean you were listening.
Okay, number 10. What pro word is used to indicate the end of a transmission when nothing else is going to follow? John Frasinato, head of the class. Ed Gerhardt, we're going to mute your chat. You're too quick on the keyboard, but you got it not quite wrong, not quite right that time. When we're done talking, we use the pro word out. If we're expecting an answer, we use the pro word over. So if it's the final transmission in a conversation, the last word in that is supposed to be out. And generally speaking, that last word is going to be delivered by whoever started the conversation in the first place. So it's kind of rude if somebody calls you and you end up saying out before they do. They might not be done asking you what they wanted to ask you. All right, so here's the other one. Pro word. What pro word is used to indicate the end of a transmission when a response is necessary?
You just said it.
That's going to be over.
It's
right?
over. Sorry.
WTFO means I expect an explanation, right? Some of you got that one. Okay, the following pro words mean that you are pausing for more than a few seconds. If you're pausing for more than a few seconds. Thank you, Mike. Wait out. Says that it's going to be a minute. So stand by if you're going to be right back, but if it's going to be a while, you want to give them a wait out. Number 13, radio checks are conducted when communication with the unit is what?
I like that question.
Repeat it.
We're having trouble hearing somebody. You could go and get a radio check, maybe?
The word they're looking for here is weak or something to that effect. Shaky, unclear.
Unreadable.
Good. I like that, Heather. Garbled. Good. Yeah. So if you're having trouble hearing somebody, like if you're talking to a boat and you're having trouble picking them up, maybe we're always going to have a radio check before we get underway. But a lot of private boats do that, so it's a good idea, regardless of why you're on the water. Okay, number 14, the international VHF calling and safety frequency is 156.8 megahertz. What channel is that on the marine radio? Everybody's got to know this one now, right? Good, 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 good.
60.
All right, what is the highest priority distress call?
Hey, Walter, repeat the right answers when we, because the video part is recorded, but not the chat.
Oh, okay. Yes, the correct answer on that was 16. Of all the different kinds of traffic we hear on the radio, it gets lumped into different classes according to priority. What is the highest priority radio call? And we've got several people already checked in with that. Mayday. David, could you explain where that word comes from?
Help me.
Voir dire. Voir dire, from the French, right?
That's right, Mayday.
Okay. Number 16, sécurité, sécurité, sécurité is what kind of a radio call?
Excellent.
There you go. I think Mike Young's is close to the right answers that we've got. Sécurité is an announcement of a situation that may cause a hazard to somebody. If you sit here and listen to the harbor traffic, you'll get security calls from the ships that are getting underway. We had one going on here a little while ago. You got a big container ship heading down the river. They will make the call that they're getting off the dock and downbound for the sea, and they will announce what channels they'll be on, so that if you're maybe pushing a barge up the river and you got to negotiate a passing situation with these guys, that you'll know that they're out there and what channel you can reach them on. Number 17, when you use the radio telephone, this is when you're on orders, you are speaking for and to the public as the voice of the what? CG, USCG, Coast Guard. Right, and right.
There's a question, Walter, from John Prestanita about Pom-Pom.
Okay, Pom-Pom is a call sort of in between a Mayday and a Securite. In other words, I sometimes try and explain it like this. A security call could be an announcement that there is a log in the water in Wapoo Creek. Pom-Pom would be, a Pom-Pom could be, hey, I just saw a boat hit that log in the water in Wapoo Creek. And a Mayday is, I just hit the log. You'll hear Pom-Poms for situations like persons in the water sighting. If you're out and they have a report of somebody falling off a dock or off of a boat in a certain area, generally the call that's going to go out from the command center would be Pom-Pom, Pom-Pom, Pom-Pom. Coast Guard Sector Charleston received a report of a person in the water vicinity of Remley Point boat landing. Does that kind of cover it?
That's it, yeah.
Urgency call, thank you. Where are we? Yeah, number 18, violations of radio silence are what? Good, bad, allowed, prohibited? There, multiple choice question tonight. Prohibited, that's right. And if you're talking and you've got a long conversation going on, what is it that you're requested to do periodically in case another station needs to break in? And go back to this concept that only one station is going to be heard on a channel at a time.
Heather.
Yes, you want to pause. That's right, Heather. So if you're giving a long report on something, unkey for a few seconds and give another station a chance to transmit. Good question in from Mike. Are Pom-Pom and Securite calls initiated only by the Coast Guard? Answer, no. The Securite call we heard a little while ago, initiated by one of the harbor pilots who was on a container ship. And any station can initiate one of these things. Susan has just volunteered to explain silence.
Can you hear me?
I'm going to allow her to go ahead and do that. Take it away, Susan.
Oh, gosh, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, quite well.
Okay. I was just going to add, when you hear silence, which is also another French adaptation, that means stay off the radio, stay off the radio. There is an emergency coming on and we need to keep the radio clear. That's it.
Very good. Yeah, it's written silence. It's pronounced silence. You will sometimes hear Mayday silence. If the Coast Guard's working a case offshore and they want to make sure that the local traffic isn't overpowering a weak signal coming in from a boat that might be 30, 40 miles out, they will impose Mayday silence or silence. And then there's another set of pro words that that end the period of silence. Okay, to the pro word. So sometimes Watch Standard might ask you for a cell phone number as a backup to a radio frequency when you're on patrol. So we will use the pro word numbers follow. to let them know that we're going to give them the phone number. And there is a similar pro word that's hardly ever used for symbol for, and that would be the only example I can think of would be if you had to use an ampersand or an at sign as in an email address. That would be, you would say, okay, the email address is Alpha Uniform X-Ray Whiskey Alpha Romeo, symbol for at sign Golf Mike Alpha India Lima .com. And last question, before transmitting, we want to make sure that our transmitter is set to the proper what? Bill Carvey says channel. I agree. Ed says power level. I agree with that too. Wattage, channel. Yeah, these are all good. So I think the summation of it is that there's a few things that you got to get right if you want to talk to the right people and give them the information that you're trying to pass.
There's 5 more questions in the next page.
Oh. Okay. Let's see. All right, we want to avoid what kind of calling and unofficial transmissions? Unnecessary, very good. When transmitting messages, we want to send only as the receiving operator can copy. God, that question sounds like it's coming out of the Morse code manual from 1875. Yeah. This is not as big of a deal now as it used to be, given the automatic recording of our conversations with our guard channel. But if you're talking to the public, remember that they don't have computers with automatic record and playback features. So if you're trying to help another boat out there, make sure you give it to them only at the speed by which they can understand you. When we're talking with another boat, what does a boat use for its call sign? The boat name. Yep. If you don't know the boat name, you use a description, right? I heard one of these container guys calling a sailboat that was in his way coming down the Cooper River while we were getting ready here. Didn't know the name of the boat. He just said, hey, sailboat upbound in the Cooper River near buoy 37. What are your intentions? So, you do what you have to do to get the job done. If you know we have our facility number, which blends in with the rest of the Coast Guard fleet. If you're talking to a cutter, you'll use the name of the cutter. If you're talking with one of the station boats, usually you're going to use the last 3 digits of the hull number of the boat. If you're talking to the public, if the boat has a name, we'll use the name. If the boat doesn't have a name, you're going to have to come up with some way to describe it, whatever they identify themselves as. And okay, I'm going to exclude Joe and Nick from this next question. When an aircraft is engaged in a SAR mission, what word shall be included as part of the call sign of the aircraft? I'm waiting. Still waiting.
Okay, how do I get this?
Mike Young. Rescue 2944. Yes, so an aircraft on a SAR case is called rescue rather than the tail number. And that's rescue in the new phonetic alphabet is Russell. Let me think. Russell, eucalyptus, psycho, C. Wait a minute. Russell, Ian, psycho, C, eucalyptus, Ian. There we go. All right, so this is going to take some getting used to. But that has brought us to the end of my section of this thing. So,
One more question, number 26.
Oh, okay. All right. Radio silence may be imposed or lifted only when ordered by a competent authority. All right, so that's generally going to be the SAR mission controller or whoever's running the case at the sector command center. If they want to impose radio silence, they will make that announcement. That's not something that's liable to ever end in our lab, as helpful as it might be in some cases. They're generally in a better situation to deal with stuff than we are. They're in a nice quiet room. They're talking off of big, powerful towers. They're receiving through quality antennas that are way up in the air, and we're usually out on an open boat. So 19 and 20, Dawn? 19 is release the push to talk button, unkey the microphone so that you can allow somebody else to break in. And the answer for 20 is seldom, according to the book. Forward symbol 4. Okay, any questions out there in Radio Land?
So Walter, we're going to be making this video available for people off the channel for our flotilla, but just want to make sure, you're going to be working to assign mentors for each of the individuals so that people can start developing a proper channel of communication and questions and support?
Yeah, I guess that's where we are now. How about David and Susan and I will take the list and chop it up tomorrow. I think Chad and Joseph out in Tennessee, I think I'll volunteer to put you guys in my group so that we can, because I know we're not going to see you during the course of this. And I got to figure out if we can even do one for somebody in another district. But we've got, so as far as the instructors here go, David, Susan, and I all have the qualifications, which means that we can sign your books.
I think Mike Young is too, TCO, isn't he?
Mike Young is also qualified, so he can sign books. Mike, are you willing to take on a couple of students and mentor them through this? Oh, great, thank you.
Sure.
And okay.
Designated volunteers.
All right, so I lost count. How many students do we actually have?
We have 16 people minus 4 of us. So
That's 12.
12 students.
Thank you for the help with the higher level math there.
All right, so
I think that's
12 divided by 3 is 4.
Walter, we'll take that offline and we'll communicate with people and issue PQS.
I think that's perfect. If we've got a dozen students and 4 mentors, then we've got 3 per mentor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We'll take the designation of who on offline and we'll get back to people.
Okay.
Can I ask, what exactly is the schedule of these sessions? Do we have, does it go for a month? Does it go for a week? I just don't know.
We're going to go tonight, tomorrow night, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. And we will probably have chewed up the majority of the curriculum in those 4 nights. So
okay.
I think right now we had planned 1 pass through the PQS with a different instructor across those 4 nights. And if we stick to this schedule and get where we think we're going to go, then next week we'll pick it up and try and figure out what kind of exercise options we've got. So we might, we've got a bunch of people pretty close to Rifle Range Road. We might be able to drive to one of the school parking lots or something like that. We'll see. I haven't figured out this latest travel restriction stuff here.
Okay, thanks.
Everybody has a uniform, I'm assuming. So we should have no problem people showing up in uniform for the purpose of official business.
And it'll be ODU.
ODU.
So Garvey, the answer for 24 was the name of the vessel.
And if the vessel doesn't have a name, Walter, what?
Then we're going to call it sailboat or vessel in distress or something.
Okay, but not the registration.
No.
No.
Hey, Walter, can you also have everybody on the chat reply back saying that I have a portable VHF radio? That way we know who should actually be paired up to needing one.
Yeah, good point. We've got some extra handhelds here if anybody needs one to practice with. I will not be driving to Tennessee to deliver them, but for anybody that's a little bit closer than that, we can make radios available. So if anybody, I guess we just need to know who would need one if you don't have if you don't have one. David, thank you for keeping me straight on all the administrative stuff. Is there anything else that we need to sort out?
Nope. I think we're good. If you came in late, if I don't know if you did not, just make sure your first name, last name, Flotilla number, and your ID number is listed. Again, I don't know if I caught everybody at all times. So, Chad, we hope that you have tons of stuff up in Tennessee. We might have to come and join you. Mike wants the answer to question number 9. Is that correct?
Number 9. Roger.
Roger, R-O-G-E-R. All right, so far, if I understand correctly, Joe is the only one that has indicated that does not have a radio.
David, it's Bill. I don't have a radio either.
Okay, did you type it in? I don't see your answer.
Hey, yeah, he did. He's just he's got locked into a private chat with me rather than the public one.
Okay, make sure everybody that you write it as a public thing, because the private chat is not recorded for me to download. So if you have
Hey, Bill, if you look at the chat box right above where it says type message here, it says to.
Yeah, I was apparently sending a lot of my answers to another colleague. Anyway, okay, sorry. So I'm supposed to send to everyone.
Unless you're trying to pass a private message, everybody should have the chat to block set to everybody.
Yeah,
or everyone is what it says.
I'm terrible at this. Okay, got it.
We're all getting better though.
All right, so Ed does not have one. Mike Pascal, no, sorry, Joe Eagle does not. And so far, everybody else seems to have replied, which is good. We have plenty.
Mike Pascal, can you borrow a radio from Mary?
Mike has a radio.
Just got it today.
Oh, Mary. I'm Mary.
It's charging.
Okay.
All right. Well, with those handhelds, you could probably talk back and forth with Susan right there in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
So,
Do we both need a radio? Can we share it?
you can share it.
Okay.
Well,
Just have
depends
to
if you're
sanitize it.
The 6 feet of separation and the public distancing. Our intention is actually, folks, is if the plan works out, we can actually get some kind of approval. We're going to designate a point for us to be meeting, and then you'll be meeting with your mentors. Everybody will be in cars, and then we'll literally be having a parking lot far away but close enough, and be able to engage in different channel communication. Would be 13, whatever our designated will be, maybe 81, 83, or so on. We're actually also planning a photo op for that purpose also. Bill Garvey and Mike Young, both for the newsletter, but possibly for a PA event to show how the auxiliary is still showing public or social distancing. We might even show having an actual face covering, but at the same time, all have a handheld and then be in ODUs and showing that we're continuing to work to train. All right, I think that's it, Walter. We're going to go ahead and then end the actual session. And we'll get back to people with so it's back up here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And we will be by then sending and communicating assignments for mentors and then issuing actual document PQS. I know for me personally, it's not an issue. I know for Walter, it's the same. I have the ability to sign off a PDF to put initials if people can demonstrate proficiency and performance on any of the PQS tasks. So thanks for taking the time, folks. And I will end the session. Walter, thank you again for leading the session tonight. Bravo Zulu. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, you too, David. Thank you.
Thank you.